want to talk about use of funds. You've talked about some of these funds were used to buy property in Kenya,
Yes, sir.
property in Turkey. Do I have that correct?
Yes.
Remittances back to Somalia.
Yes.
I think it's important for the committee to understand that these remittances in part are used in what's called the Hwala. I want to make sure I have the terminology right. The Hwala network. Ms. Robbins, can you speak to what the Hwala network is?
Yes. So it's an informal network where someone goes to a Hwala place in Minneapolis, which is like a money exchange or a money sending site, and they say, I want to send X amount of dollars, and then there's a receiving site in Somalia, and they take the cash out. So money doesn't cross the border. It's an order for money here that gets transmitted to Somalia.
For the time, because I'm out of time, I want to expound. In Somalia and other parts in the Middle East region writ large, a Hwala network is a bunch of money exchangers, hand to hand, not bank account to bank account.
Exactly.
And what is clear in Somalia and other parts is that Al-Shabaab, the largest Al-Qaeda affiliate in Somalia, they have their hands all through this network. So taxpayer money, United States dollars that are being remitted into Somalia in parts have been utilized or have fell into the hands of Al-Shabaab. Do you think that's a correct assessment?
Yes, we have plenty of evidence of that, from money directly going to Al-Shabaab, but then also indirectly because they take a cut of whatever gets sent to Somalia.
Thank you so much, Chairman. I know I'm over. Thank you for the additional time.
Not only are they covering up welfare fraud, investigators found out Somalis were sending the cash to terrorists.
Al-Shabaab, the largest Al-Qaeda affiliate in Somalia, they have their hands all through this network. So taxpayer money, United States dollars that are being remitted into Somalia in parts have been utilized or have fell into the hands of Al-Shabaab. Do you think that's a correct assessment?
Yes, we have plenty of evidence of that.
Wow. This is why ICE was in Minneapolis in the first place. They're hunting fraud and deporting illegals.
Hello everyone, I hope that you are doing fine from any part of the world that you are watching today's video from. We have heard the fraud cases linked to the Somali communities happening in Minnesota in the United States of America. And normally when the fraud cases or any other case of the kind occurs in the United States, the Americans usually imagine something being handled quietly in the courtrooms. But this case is quite different. According to reports, the American detectives are now traveling overseas as part of an investigation linked to alleged Minnesota fraud scheme. That alone tells you the scale of what federal authorities believe may have happened. This isn't just about one state or one community. This is about American taxpayer money, public trust, and a system that often fails the very people who depend on it the most. For Black Americans, these cases hit even harder. This is because when public funds disappear, it is our schools, our neighborhoods, and our social programs that suffer the most. We are not jumping into any conclusion. We are asking questions that any normal human being will be asking. Why did this case go viral? Why did this case go global? Why does the federal involvement signal, and who is really paying the price? Welcome back to Polito Realities, a channel that handles real discussions. And if you love listening to honest conversations, then this space is for you. But remember to take a minute to subscribe, to like, and to share today's video. For my subscribers and my new viewers, feel most welcome. But before then, let's watch the clips and see what the people are reacting to what is going on.
How a U.S. fraud case led investigators to Kenya. It started quietly as most major financial crimes do. In the United States, federal authorities were tracking suspicious activity linked to government-funded programs meant to serve vulnerable communities. On paper, the money was being spent on food, childcare services, and emergency relief. But behind the paperwork, something was very wrong. Millions of dollars were leaving U.S. government accounts, yet the services they were meant to support either never existed or were grossly exaggerated.
National correspondent Kayla Gaskins in Washington. Luxury cars, private villas, and overseas wire transfers. Newly obtained documents are laying bare just how far a group of Minnesota fraudsters went to blow through hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer money.
As investigators followed the money, the trail didn't stop in America. It led across borders and eventually to Kenya. According to U.S. authorities, the alleged fraud amounted to 39 billion shillings, roughly 100 million U.S. dollars. What began as a domestic investigation quickly turned into an international case involving shell companies, false invoices, and individuals accused of moving illicit funds out of the United States. Court filings and investigative reporting show that the suspects allegedly used fake vendor contracts to bill government programs for services that were never delivered. Payments were approved, money was released, and soon after, large sums began moving through multiple accounts. Some of that money, investigators say, was withdrawn in cash. Other portions were wired abroad. Kenya emerged as one of the destinations where funds were allegedly sent and later invested.
Arrest of a Somali immigrant in Minnesota seen pictured with local Democrat leaders, Governor Tim Walz and Congressman Ilhan Omar. ICE says that he was convicted of welfare fraud in Canada and should not have been eligible for temporary status here in the United States. Correspondent Garrett Tenney tells us the backstory here from Chicago. Hi, Garrett.
Yeah, Martha, the immigration judge in that Somali man's case denied his asylum request specifically because of the significant amount of fraud on his record. That was in 2004, but for some reason, Abdul Dahir Ibrahim was granted temporary protected status for 10 years, even after he had an order of removal. Altogether, DHS says it has arrested more than 12 individuals so far as part of its newly launched Operation Metro Surge in the Twin Cities. Those in arrest include 5 other Somalis, 2 of which have also been convicted of fraud.
Tonight, we've got new information for you about massive fraud in the Feeding Our Future investigation. One of the ringleaders is going to prison for nearly 30 years.
Investigative reporter Eric Rasmussen was in federal court
in stealing taxpayer money meant to help feed kids during the pandemic. Judge Nancy Brazel saying in court, "I cannot find any reason for the behavior other than pure unmitigated greed."
Not only took tens of millions of dollars, but laundered much of it abroad and sent much of it to Kenya, among other things.
Lead prosecutor Joe Thompson was asking for 30 years, calling it the kind of nightmare in Minnesota, where he recently told 5 Eyewitness News government fraud overall could exceed $1 billion.
Does a sentence like this one get you any closer to recovering more money for taxpayers?
Well, it speeds it up. Now that he's been sentenced, we can actually execute on that forfeiture, sell that property off, and return it to the taxpayers.
With his family in the gallery at the federal courthouse in Minneapolis, Farah said, "I want to apologize to the state and the country that has given me so much." But that apology focused largely on his admitted attempt to bribe a juror at the end of his trial last year.
The sense I got was he's sorry he got caught.
The U.S. Attorney's Office estimates they've been able to get back $60 to $70 million so far, but prosecutors point out that money Farah sent overseas will likely never be recovered.
This is Somalian-born Abdi Hussein, a local businessman that's running for the District 14A, Minnesota House of Representatives. And guess what business he owns? If you would have said daycare center, you would have been correct. He owns a Bloomy Kids Child Care Center in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And he also owns a consulting firm that helps small businesses and startups. I find that pretty interesting. Isn't it funny how all these Somalians all of a sudden have these daycare centers that they're running? Yeah, I'm sure there's nothing to see.
This will impact thousands of people. People will lose their jobs and hold their homes. Those who are committing fraud need to be held accountable. We can do that without terrorizing a whole community.
Yeah, right. I think that they should not let these people wear these rags on their heads in our country. It's scary Because when I see those rags, I'm thinking a bomb is under those rags and all those clothes. Somebody's standing way back.
My name's Peggy Flanagan. I am the Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota, and I'm really honored and humbled to be here with all of you today. I am incredibly clear that the Somali community is part of the fabric of the state of Minnesota. I think about my friendship with Nimco. We've been friends for almost 25 years.
Yeah, right.
And when I think of being part of Minnesota and growing up here, the Somali community has always been a part of my Minnesota. So I want to just encourage the community to know that we're with you. We've got your back. I am here shopping today, and just encourage other folks to show up, support our Somali businesses, support our immigrant neighbors. And I know that things are scary right now. And just know that there are more people who are looking out for you. There are more people who are here to support you than you know. I will continue to stand with the Somali community to be with you and to do all I can to return the friendship and community that the Somali community has shown me. Thank you so much.
How did I do? Don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. Did I do well? I had on your outfit. I said what y'all told me to say. Let me go. What the? I'm telling you. And that black Somalian standing there, that female looking at her. You better speak, bitch. You better say what we want you to say.
Check of your top stories. Another person now facing charges. This is connected to the largest pandemic fraud case in U.S. history.
The fallout continues from the Feeding Our Future scheme. In a new affidavit, the FBI says a woman used an email account to carry out wire fraud and submit fake business records. Now,
Barrett Leone is at the live desk this morning with the details of this new charging document. And Barrett, this case we know has been full of twists and turns since the start, but turns out apparently they're still investigating.
Yeah, they sure are. This is the latest charge. It comes nearly 2 years after the Department of Justice first unveiled its investigation, showing that the $250 million fraud scheme is far from over. Authorities arrested and charged Hebo Dar. A 23-page affidavit claims she used a Gmail account to carry out wire fraud and submitting false business records to Feeding Our Future. They also found evidence of outlandish numbers on invoices. So according to court documents, Dar's food site, Northside Wellness Center, claimed to serve 52,000 meals in the month of January 2021. Later that year, it claimed to serve 40,000 meals every week. Another vendor invoice submitted by Northside Wellness claimed they bought 3,000 gallons of milk in 1 month. At New Vision Foundation, we found similar claims, although no charges have been made in connection to this raid in St. Paul last week. Court documents say the nonprofit claimed to serve thousands of meals to children daily in St. Paul and Waite Park. So since the start of the 2-year investigation, 44 defendants have pleaded guilty or been convicted. That, of course, includes Feeding Our Future founder Amy Bach, whose appeal is still ongoing. FBI agents also believe that Dar was a flight risk.
A lot of details here because really, according to prosecutors, Brian, there's just so much fraud here in the state. Now they're looking at the state's Attorney General, Keith Ellison. Why? Because the state's top cop here in Minnesota was caught in an audio recording behind closed doors meeting with a group of soon-to-be convicted Somali fraudsters. They were asking the Attorney General for help to get more funding. Listen to this.
The only way we can protect what we have is by inserting ourselves into the political arena, putting our votes where it needs to be, but most importantly, putting our dollars in the right place and supporting candidates.
This Somali from Minnesota has been sentenced to 10 years in prison.
So we're talking about Abdimajad Mohammed Nur. He's going to spend the next 10 years, though, in federal lockup after investigators say he took part in a $48 million COVID-19 pandemic scam. So this was part of a meal fraud scam, Trace. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars that were meant to feed hungry American kids on a lot of different things. They took stacks and stacks of cash like you're looking at here. They were blown on luxury cars. Let's buy an Audi. Let's buy a waterfront property out in Minnesota. And If you have time, let's go to a private villa out in the Maldives. That would be nice. Well, that's what they did, according to prosecutors. They showed these video clips, Trace, of the fraudsters popping bottles of champagne out on that luxury getaway. Police say the men were happy to be cashing in. They were texting each other, "You're going to be the richest 25-year-old, God willing." What is being called the largest fraud scam in history? It happened on Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's watch. Today, the Democrat who ran for vice president launched a fraud prevention program. Critics say that's a little too late. The White House has slammed him for failing not just his state of Minnesota, but the country. He pushed back.
You can't have one without the other. Any amount of fraud is too much. That's why over the last several years, we've made many systematic changes to state government to both detect fraud and hold those accountable after it happened. Year after year, we brought new ideas to the legislature to stay ahead of the evolving tactics, and they are evolving.
Okay, so it doesn't stop there, though. Prosecutors.
Welcome back to our discussion. We have watched the clips and we have seen how different people are expressing their thoughts of what is happening in Minnesota about the frauds linked to the Somali communities in particular. And what makes this Minnesota fraud investigation stand out is not just about the alleged dollar amounts involved, but the seriousness of the federal response. When the United States detectives reportedly travel abroad, it signals that investigators believe key individuals, evidence, and also financial trails which may lie outside the American borders. This matters to Americans because the frauds of this scale often involves public programs meant to serve vulnerable communities. When those funds are allegedly misused, it deepens inequality and fuels distrust, especially among the Black communities who already face systematic underinvestment. Historically, large fraud cases are not just about greed. These fraud cases reveal weaknesses in oversight. How were these systems approved? Who failed to monitor them, and why does accountability often come only after massive losses have been encountered? Another uncomfortable reality is selective outrage. Small-scale fraud by individuals is aggressively punished, while large-scale schemes can operate for many years before serious action is taken. That imbalance is something Black Americans do not understand at all. This case also raises broader questions about globalization. Money moves faster than justice. Digital transfers, shell organizations, and international networks make enforcement harder, but not impossible. That's why the federal agencies escalate, coordinate internationally, and apply pressure beyond the United States borders. Importantly, discussing this case is not just about attacking a nationality or community, but it's just about protecting American funds and demanding the transparency that any person will wish for, something every taxpayer deserves. At this core, this story is about power and accountability, and who is allowed to exploit the system without immediate consequences. If you feel that these discussions touched you, then leave your thoughts in the comment section. Until next time, be grounded, be informed, and don't forget to subscribe, to like, and to share today's video. Be blessed.